Frank Lloyd Wright, Britain's horniest cat lover. Sorry, wrong guy. Frank Lloyd Wright, America's famousest architect. Iconically designed this and this and this, but would you believe that in his entire career, he only did one skyscraper? Or that his one skyscraper is in, checks notes, Bartlesville, Oklahoma? It's true. This is, in a strictly literal sense, Frank Lloyd Wright's highest achievement, a totally singular work in his portfolio, and it's called Price Tower. In 2023, Price Tower sold for the towering price of $10. Woof. Yes, this is the story of how a monumental building became a monumental pain. Too nice to be destroyed, but also too nice for anyone to afford taking care of. And it starts, depending on how you count it, 100 years ago. Welcome to the 1920s. I'm slinging hooch and betting the house on our amazing stock market. Meanwhile, Frank Lloyd Wright's cooking up a 4-towered apartment building for shiny New York City. But both of us just got some bad news. First, the whiskey I've been slinging's just rotten apple juice. And second, the stock market crashed. There's not enough money to build much anymore, and Frank's towers get scrapped. It's the second time this decade our guys had a skyscraper fall through. In 1924, he proposed a skyscraper for the National Life Insurance Company in Chicago that flopped too. He's pretty disappointed, even though he would later, when speaking of Bartlesville, call bigger cities, quote, out of date and, quote, overcrowded architectural pig piles, which sort of seems like trying out for varsity, getting on JV, and then telling everyone that the varsity team is actually really toxic and you'd rather be the star on JV than warming the bench for a team that doesn't appreciate you. Which, you know what? Sure. Bartlesville, Oklahoma was an uncrowded, pigless pile where Wright came to believe a nice building could really shine. It was the home of Harold C. Price, head of the H.C. Price Company, an oil pipeline constructor looking to build a new headquarters in the 50s. At the point, Bartlesville population was south of 20,000. So when Price went to Wright about building a new HQ, he proposed a modest $750,000 3-story building. Wright countered that. Actually, he'd like to build a 10-story building. So the two compromised and built, checks notes, a 19-story building. Just a reminder that Frank Lloyd Wright might be the most gifted negotiator in our nation's history. The square footage was ultimately more than double what Price wanted, but a few 100,000 square feet short of Wright's original idea. Also, it cost $2.1 million, just short of $25 million in today's dollars. Roughly, Olivia Rodrigo's net worth. The ultimate design was a single-tower adaptation of Wright's New York plans from 30 years prior. The main floors were all divided into quadrants, with 3 quarters designed as office space and the other vertical quadrant a stack of 8 duplex apartments. The idea was that Price employees could commute to work within the building, though not a single one of them did. Still, nice apartments. Another key thing about the building was that it was very unrectangular. Triangles and acute angles and odd shapes made up not just the rooms, but also much of the furniture which Wright custom designed to suit the building. Spoiler, that's important later. The building was finished in 1956, and the Price Company called it home until 1981 when they moved their HQ to Dallas and sold the building to the Phillips Petroleum Company, an oil company with deep roots, or rather wells, in the area. Unfortunately, 1984 brought something of an oil crisis, and for the next 15-ish years, Phillips basically just used Price Tower for storage. Around the turn of the millennium, a nonprofit called the Price Tower Art Center convinced Phillips to do about $4 million worth of renovations to the building and then donate it to them. Just a reminder that the Price Tower Art Center might be the most gifted negotiator in our nation's history. The people behind the nonprofit open a bunch of stuff in the tower. A 2-story restaurant, a museum, and a 21-room boutique hotel with the slogan, "Stay the night with Frank Lloyd Wright," which is both a catchy rhyme and also one of the worst Danimals sweepstakes prizes I can imagine. And this was all well and good, except for the fact that the nonprofit couldn't afford to maintain it at all. The heating and air conditioning systems caused constant problems, donations were declining, revenues were falling, their biggest benefactors were dying, and employees' paychecks frequently wouldn't even clear. In 2019 alone, the Art Center lost almost $400,000, and their debts kept piling up. So, in 2023, they sold to a group of private investors led by a woman named Cynthia Blanchard. The group incorporated as Coppertree Incorporated, and they bought the entire building for $10 US. Roughly Olivia Rodrigo's net worth, if you subtract her royalties, residuals, real estate, name, image, likeness, master's investments, and all other income and assets, and then add $10. You might now be wondering, is Cynthia Blanchard one of the most gifted negotiators in our nation's history? In many ways, no. Coppertree Incorporated's deal included absorbing the nonprofit's debts and dumping $10 million into overdue preservation work on the building. Blanchard & Company had grand designs of turning the building into a tech hub for Silicon Valley types wanting to start up their startup somewhere with a lower cost of living, as well as starting a new restaurant, a private club, and a line of, and I mean this, NFTs. Blanchard referred to herself as being, quote, assigned by God to do this. But what God did not assign her, as it turned out, was $10 million. About half of the promised sum was to come from loans that eventually fell through, and a good deal of the rest was stuff Blanchard expected to get from state tax credits. In the short time that Price Tower was under Coppertree's care, things were, to put it lightly, not awesome. None of the improvements or restaurants or anything came to be, the tower's debts ballooned to $2 million, and they ended up in a quibble with a judge over whether they had to keep the utilities running when it was cold out. In August of 2024, they laid off a bunch of staff, closed the building, and told their remaining tenants to GTFO by September. When Blanchard's husband's crypto company found itself financially insolvent, they turned to selling some of that original Frank Lloyd Wright designed custom furniture to drum up cash. Pros of this, such pieces can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. Cons of this, it was illegal. See, in 2011, the Chicago-based Frank Lloyd Wright Conservancy got a preservation easement that included the furniture, basically meaning they had a right to weigh in on anything done to the tower and its custom pieces. So when Blanchard ran off and sold stuff covered by the easement, they sued her big time. But they're not the only ones who sued Blanchard and Coppertree over Price Tower. Enter McFarland Building Company. Their thing is restoring old buildings in the area, and in May 2024, when things were already going bad for Coppertree, they struck a deal to buy Price Tower for $1.4 million. So you can only imagine their surprise when, a few months later, they saw the building up for auction on a commercial real estate site where you could also buy an abandoned Burger King. The judge assigned to the case was the same one Coppertree had ignored when he told them to turn the building's utilities back on, and he ruled not only that they would have to sell to McFarland for the agreed $1.4 million price, but also that the money would be paid not to the Blanchards, but to the court, who would use it to pay off the building's debts, restore the utilities, and get the furniture back. After this, Coppertree, with $216 in the bank, declared bankruptcy. So what's next for Price Tower? I don't know. Maybe McFarland will be better, maybe they'll find a way to be worse. Hopefully someone takes good care of this thing. It is, after all, pretty cool, and it would be a shame if cool things could only survive in cities home to the richest people in the world. I actually tried to buy it and make it HIHQ in 2023, but I couldn't scrape together the $10. But want to know something amazing you can buy for even less than $10? A month of this video's sponsor, Nebula. It's a streaming service I started with a few creators a while back, but if you think it's just ad-free nerd YouTube, think again. I mean, you do have wonderful videos from your favorite nerdy YouTubers ad-free, but you also have Nebula's ever-growing slate of originals. Creator-led projects that answer the question, what if we gave your favorite creators the money and infrastructure to make full-on TV shows and movies? Case in point, my writers and I produce a Nebula original called Abolish Everything, a comedy debate show where creators and comedians alike argue to eliminate their pet peeves from society, rebutted by a panel of hilarious improvisers who say things like this.
Imagine if David didn't play the chord that pleased the Lord. We wouldn't have that song.
That's just one of so many amazing originals you can watch as a Nebula subscriber, whether you're into short films, long films, video essays, the news, whatever. And even better, with the link in the description, you can get 40% off an annual subscription, just $36 for the whole year.
Now you're talking my sauce, Fred. Now you're talking my sauce.